Some of the cases you've handled, I'm thinking of the cases involved in the California prison system, putting you face to face with some really intractable social problems.
Absolutely.
And a lot of suffering.
A lot of suffering.
A lot of
yeah.
suffering. Do you find that your meditation practice helps you stay present with that?
I think it does, absolutely. I think it does. It centers me. I'm trying to get a word that describes it. It centers me. It calms me. It focuses me. And so I know sometimes on a tough day, I'm really not at wit's end, but let's say I have a series of hard hearings or a series of conferences with what a judge would call troublesome attorneys, who are, it's going to be a tough time. They're fighting each other. They're never fighting me, but they're fighting each other, and things are going on. And when I know that's coming up, and it's been a tough day already, I will generally meditate. Not as long as I try to meditate at least 45 minutes, an hour if I have the luxury. And I'll just take the time out and do it. It's time well spent.
I want to take you back to your days in the Civil Rights Division, traveling through the South, when it was a very high-risk and tension-filled situation.
Yeah.
Is that a situation where, when you look back on it, do you think meditation would have done you any good at that point?
No doubt. I'm a huge believer in meditation, and I think it would have. You're right, it was very dangerous then. I remember some very scary times when the church was bombed in Birmingham. I was in Washington, and they put me on a plane right away. I flew down that day and reported to FBI headquarters in downtown Birmingham. And I remember one of the scariest moments I've ever had. They wanted me to set up a meeting with Martin Luther King and Burke Marshall, the head of the Civil Rights Division. And I had to drive from downtown FBI headquarters out into the area of town they call Birmingham, where all the black houses were being bombed in those days. And people were shooting at each other that night. The church had just been bombed that morning. And got in a car, it was dark, and while I was going through the white part of town, I had the lights off and hoped some angry white didn't see me. And then when I got in the black part of town, I turned on the lights so that the blacks could see me and not shoot me. It's very scary. So the long answer to your question, if I had known about meditation, I would have done it before I went on that drive. I would have still done the drive, but I think...
And it would have helped you to feel...
I think it would have helped me to feel more up to that scary task. That I'd never done that before. I didn't know what to expect. Didn't know if I was going to get shot at. I think it would have helped considerably. And there were other similar instances where... And again, I think I've got a lot of friends who have burned out in civil rights, public interest work, and gone on to other things. I have no doubt that I've often thought that I might not have gotten this inclusion body myositis had I been a meditator before I caught it, assuming that stress indeed is the trigger for it. I think it's very important in a judge, and I have no doubt that meditation helps with that. It helps. Speaking of empathy, my background is natural for that. I grew up with two uncles in South Central LA who were criminals, let's just say the word. And my mother was the only one in the family who owned a home at that time. And our home was always with the bail bondsman, securing a bail for my uncles, one or the other of them. And I, as a little kid, I'd go to court, see my mother, my grandmother sitting there, watching my uncle being arraigned or something. And I was very, very aware of that when I took the bench and would see somebody out there that reminded me of my mother or my grandmother watching someone appearing before me. So that was a kind of empathy, and meditation really helps me in those things because it centers me again, and you have to try to take a step back from that kind of situation and not go overboard and say, oh, that's my uncle, I'm going to give him a special deal. And meditation helps you do that. It helps you
To keep the balance.
to keep the balance, absolutely.
When I tell people, I'm a 3L, and when I tell people at law school that I'm in a class about meditation, they kind of laugh and think that it's crazy. And so I guess, what would you say to law students who think that there's kind of no connection between being a law student and being someone who meditates?
I'd say you're really missing out on something, and you're young enough to disabuse yourself of that notion and get on the bandwagon early. It's a long time before I had to get a disease in order to get into meditation. No, I think that this is the wave of the future and a perfect antidote to the kinds of behavior in court and the kind of stress in the legal profession you get now that you don't get in my day. And there's enormous pressure to produce, to get in contact with these clients. Things have moved up. What used to take hours or days to communicate or send something can be done in minutes now. And it adds to the stress on attorneys. And I think we've got to change with the times, and meditation is a perfect addition to the kit for attorneys to help them cope with that.